Let me open by saying something most people refuse to hear. Making money is far more about your mind than your muscles. The world is filled with bright people who stay broke and ordinary people who get rich. Why? Because wealth begins with psychology long before it shows up in your bank account. If you can't control your behavior, your emotions, and your impulses, the market will teach you humility faster than a bad haircut. Mastering yourself before you master money is the ultimate advantage, and yet it's the part almost everyone ignores because it demands personal responsibility. People fantasize about becoming rich, but they haven't taken control of the person making the financial decisions. If you can't discipline your desires, if you can't delay gratification, if you can't stop yourself from acting on impulse, you will spend a lifetime building wealth for other people instead of yourself. The world is designed to take advantage of those who lack restraint. Advertisers prey on your wants. 5 billion companies engineer products to hook you, and friends will encourage you to spend more than you earn. If you allow your instincts to run the show, your wallet becomes a casualty of your own biology. The first real profit you'll ever earn comes from saying no. The harsh truth is that the market does not reward emotion, it punishes it. You can't panic when prices fall, and you can't get euphoric when they rise. Riches accumulate in the hands of people who stay rational while others lose their heads. Mastering yourself means having the strength to stick with a plan long after the excitement fades. It means resisting the urge to tinker every 5 minutes or chase every new shiny distraction. Every financially successful person you admire has one thing in common: they behave sensibly when the world stops making sense. Mastery also requires awareness of how easily we deceive ourselves. Human beings are biased, overconfident, and wired for immediate pleasure. We convince ourselves we need what we merely want. We think today's decisions won't matter tomorrow, and we underestimate how quickly small losses multiply. Controlling yourself means correcting your thinking before your bank balance corrects your behavior for you. It means asking whether a purchase is serving your future or satisfying a momentary craving. Year after year, fortunes are made by people who learn to let boredom work in their favor. Once you learn to manage your emotions, your habits, and your impulses, money stops being something you chase. It becomes something that flows toward you because you no longer sabotage yourself at every turn. Personal discipline is the gatekeeper between dreaming about wealth and actually achieving it. You become your own greatest asset instead of your own greatest liability. The moment you learn to govern your own behavior is the moment every financial decision begins building your future instead of burying it. Getting rich slowly sounds painfully ordinary in a world obsessed with shortcuts, but it remains the most dependable path anyone has ever found. People chase overnight success because it flatters their impatience. They scroll through stories of instant millionaires and convince themselves that luck is a strategy, when in reality it's a rare accident. What actually builds wealth is steady progress, repeated consistently. until the results become undeniable. Compounding only works when you give it time to breathe, because money multiplies like a tree growing rings. You don't notice the growth day to day, but 1 year, 1 decade later, you look back and realize how enormous it has become. The tragedy is that people abandon good plans not because they fail, but because they feel slow. They mistake boredom for failure and activity for progress. So they jump from one shiny opportunity to the next, constantly resetting their timeline and interrupting what could have been life-changing momentum. The richest rewards come to those who can endure silence, stillness, and delayed feedback. In a culture trained to expect instant gratification, patience is a competitive advantage. You win simply by being willing to wait longer than the person next to you. Consistency amplifies every small decision you make. Saving a fraction of your income doesn't feel heroic. And investing regularly doesn't make headlines, but that is exactly why it works. It bypasses emotion. It operates quietly in the background. And while everyone else is reacting to news cycles and market noises, you remain on track, letting time do the heavy lifting. Compounding as one demand, stay in the game long enough for its power to reveal itself. This mastery of time requires humility. You have to accept that you won't see dramatic gains immediately, and that the urge to abandon the plan will return again and again. The discipline to stay the course is cultivated, not inherited. The truth is, wealth built slowly becomes almost impossible to lose because it wasn't the product of luck. It was earned through habit and behavior. By the time you arrive, you've forged the mindset to protect it. Getting rich slowly is not just a financial path, but a personal transformation. It rewards the patient, the persistent, and the rational, and it silently filters out the frantic. In the long game, character becomes your compound interest. Simplicity is a superpower in a world addicted to complexity. Most people assume the path to wealth must be sophisticated, secretive, or mathematically exotic. So they chase strategies they can barely explain and follow trends they don't truly understand. But the truth history keeps proving is blunt, boring strategies executed with discipline beat brilliant chaos every time. The average person doesn't need the perfect stock, the perfect business idea, or the perfect timing. They need a sensible plan they can stick to through good days, bad days, and especially through the long stretches of nothing happening. Wealth is not won by being clever at the right moment. It is preserved by not being foolish the rest of the time. The real challenge is psychological. Boring strategies work, but they feel slow, ordinary, and painfully unexciting, which is why most people abandon them. Humans are wired for novelty and stimulation, so the steady drip of progress rarely satisfies the emotional appetite. Instead, people go wandering into high-risk investments, chasing hype or throwing money at promises of fast returns. They believe activity equals achievement, when in fact the constant switching of tactics destroys momentum. A disciplined and dull approach. Spend less than you earn, invest consistently, avoid unnecessary debt. Looks laughably basic, but it is shockingly effective. It keeps you in the game while the thrill seekers burn themselves. Confidence is another part of the equation. When your approach is simple, you understand it. That clarity gives you the conviction to stay calm when the world turns upside down. During a downturn, a confused investor panics because he never really grasped what he owned or why he owned it. The person with a grounded plan can sit still, ignore the noise, and wait for rationality to return. Markets reward the person who acts least in times of chaos, not the one who flails the most. There is also the compounding effect of good habits. A boring plan forces you into a routine, saving every month, investing automatically, reviewing decisions thoughtfully. Over time, those small, responsible actions build a fortress around your financial life. They create a margin of safety that protects you from the unexpected and prepares you for opportunities others are too frantic to recognize. In the end, the simple strategy survives because it aligns with reality rather than fantasy. Boring, steady behavior compounds, while emotional, frantic behavior collapses. The person who commits to the basics, applies patience, and avoids self-inflicted wounds ends up farther ahead than the one chasing fireworks. Simplicity scales. Noise does not. Avoiding stupidity is a far more reliable path to wealth than trying to be brilliant. Most people falsely believe success requires extraordinary intelligence or groundbreaking ideas. But the truth is far simpler and less glamorous. You can make tremendous progress simply by refusing to make the catastrophic mistakes that destroy financial futures. The world is littered with people who had talent, opportunity, and resources but managed to sabotage themselves chasing something flashy or reckless. The graveyard of financial dreams is filled not with people who were too average, but with people who were too careless. Every financial downfall comes wrapped in predictable patterns: overspending, overconfidence, speculation, and emotional decision-making. Avoiding stupidity means teaching yourself to recognize these traps long before you step in them. You learn to doubt the easy promise, to question the crowd, and to ignore the fear of missing out that pushes people to do the irrational. The temptation of quick gains is powerful because it whispers that you can escape the laws of discipline and time. But the markets have a brutal way of teaching lessons to those who ignore fundamentals. When you protect yourself from foolish moves, you give compounding the opportunity to work uninterrupted. Being sensible also means operating within your circle of competence. If you don't understand something, stay away. There's no prize handed out for complexity, and there's no shame in passing on an opportunity that doesn't make sense. In fact, the ability to say no is one of the most valuable financial skills you can acquire. Every poor decision avoided is money saved, stress prevented, and time preserved. People underestimate how lethal one misstep can be. A single disastrous investment, a single unmanageable loan, or a single moment of emotional panic can undo years of progress. The goal is to reduce the downside so the upside can take care of itself. Humility is essential in this process. Believing you are immune to mistakes is the fastest way to guarantee them. Wealth requires a constant awareness of your own limitations. You don't need to outsmart the market. You just need to refuse to let the market outsmart you. If you manage risk, stay skeptical of what sounds too good to be true, and refuse to be swept up in hysteria, you position yourself ahead of most people. Avoiding stupidity isn't glamorous, but it is dependable. It keeps you in the game long enough for discipline, patience, and compounding to quietly do the heavy lifting. In the long run, the person who steps carefully will travel farther than the one who sprints blindly into traps. Thinking independently is one of the greatest financial advantages you'll ever have. Yet it is astonishingly rare because most people dislike standing apart from the crowd. Human beings are social animals, wired for belonging rather than reason. When everyone is shouting about a new opportunity, it feels dangerous to resist. When prices fall and the world is panicking, it feels foolish to stay calm. But the secret is hiding in plain sight. The crowd is usually wrong at the extremes. Markets surge not because every asset deserves it, but because excitement feeds on itself. Markets crash not because everything is worthless, but because fear spreads faster than logic. If you want different results than everyone else, you must be willing to think differently, even when it feels uncomfortable. Independence is not about being contrary for the sake of rebellion. It means gathering information thoughtfully, forming your own judgment, and acting on it even when the masses disagree. Most people don't do this. They react. They copy what they see. They seek validation before they make a move. But money rewards the person who is calm when the crowd is frantic and skeptical, when the crowd is euphoric. The ability to recognize when others are being driven by emotion instead of analysis is like having a compass in a storm. You don't need perfect timing. Just the confidence to avoid stampeding with everyone else. Independent thinking protects you from the two most destructive forces in finance, fear and FOMO. Fear pushes people to sell good assets at terrible prices. FOMO pushes them to buy into hype at exactly the wrong moment. Standing apart requires emotional strength because you will sometimes feel isolated in your decisions. But wealth accumulates in those moments of quiet conviction. Acting rationally when the world refuses to be rational. Rational creates opportunities that only appear to people who are willing to hold their own line. The beauty of independent thinking is that it compounds over time. Every sensible decision strengthens your judgment. Every mistake teaches a lesson that others never learn, and every avoided trend keeps you financially intact. Eventually, the noise stops sounding persuasive. You begin to see the patterns others miss. You stop reacting to markets and start understanding them. Independent thinkers build wealth, not by being the loudest voice in the room, but by being the calmest. In a world addicted to consensus and speed, the ability to think for yourself is not only an advantage, it's a quiet edge that shapes fortunes, while the crowd talks itself in circles. Wisdom is the real currency behind every lasting fortune, and the mind is the only asset that compounds faster than money ever will. When you commit to learning, Curiosity becomes a strategic advantage that follows you everywhere, into your job, your investments, your relationships, and your decisions. Most people stop educating themselves after school and then wonder why their progress stalls. The world keeps moving, industries keep changing, opportunities evolve, and those who remain mentally stagnant get pushed aside. Staying curious means constantly updating your thinking, refining your judgment, and expanding the lens through which you make choices. Every book read, every mistake analyzed, every insight collected becomes part of a growing mental toolkit that pays dividends for the rest of your life. Humility is the key that unlocks this compounding process. You can't learn anything if you believe you already know everything. Wealth attracts arrogance in the unprepared, and arrogance has a perfect track record of destroying fortunes. The person who approaches life with the understanding that they could be wrong, that circumstances can shift, and that a better idea might exist is the person who adapts instead of collapses. Markets punish ego relentlessly. They reward those who stay skeptical, who ask questions, and who accept uncertainty as part of the territory. When you remain humble, you become a better listener, a better thinker, and a better decision maker. And those advantages layer on top of each other over time. Continuous learning also protects you from manipulation and confusion. A well-educated mind is harder to fool. It recognizes patterns, it questions narratives, and it avoids acting purely on emotion. People who don't learn are destined to repeat the same errors, decade after decade, never understanding why they stay financially stuck. Meanwhile, the person who studies their own behavior, observes others, and absorbs lessons from history quietly moves ahead. Progress becomes inevitable when your knowledge base compounds while everyone else is recycling stale ideas. The final reward is freedom. The freedom to make choices based on understanding rather than guesswork. Money without wisdom is fragile. It disappears with one impulsive move or one market downturn. But money built on a foundation of lifelong learning becomes resilient. You not only have wealth, but the competence to protect it, grow it, and use it wisely. Over time, you stop being surprised by success because you've developed the mindset that produces it. When learning becomes a habit, your potential expands faster than any balance sheet, and the compounding effect of your mind becomes the greatest edge you'll ever own.